2. The Academic Chairs of Virtue. People commended unto Zarathustra a wise man, as one who could discourse well about sleep and virtue. Greatly was he honoured and rewarded for it, and all the youths sat before his chair. To him went Zarathustra, and sat among the youths before his chair. And thus spake the wise man.
Zarathustra is in a city called Pied Cow, and he checks out what the place has to offer. He hears about a local wise man, so he goes to listen to one of his lectures. We are beginning to sense the unique nature of this book. It feels like an ancient text, set in ancient times. Anyone can come and listen to the wise man, as they did in ancient Athens when a philosopher would speak in the town square. But it is actually an allegory for 19th century modern society, and the wise man is actually an allegory for a contemporary professor in the academy. We have to keep this in mind as we read on. For now, let's see what the wise man has to say.
Respect and modesty in presence of sleep. That is the first thing. And to go out of the way of all who sleep badly and keep awake at night. Modest is even the thief in presence of sleep. He always stealeth softly through the night. Immodest, however, is the night watchman. Immodestly he carrieth his horn. No small art is it to sleep. It is necessary for that purpose to keep awake all day.
The wise man is teaching that the ideal of life should be to achieve self-contentment and tranquility. The Greeks used the word ataraxia to describe a state without any distress or worry, and therefore without suffering. Several schools of Greek thought, and later philosophical schools as well, regarded this state as the ideal state, the thing that philosophy should teach us how to achieve. The wise man belongs to this tradition, and he teaches that the ideal is to achieve a good night's sleep. He also warns that we should stay away from those people who think differently, and thus might upset our ataraxia. Zarathustra, of course, is one of those people.
10 times a day must thou overcome thyself. That causeth wholesome weariness, and is poppy to the soul. 10 times must thou reconcile again with thyself, for overcoming is bitterness, and badly sleep the unreconciled.
We meet the concept of self-overcoming, which will be very prevalent in Zarathustra's teachings as well. But we have to be careful and make the distinction. The wise man's idea of self-overcoming is very different from what Zarathustra calls self-overcoming, or self-surpassing. For the wise man, self-overcoming means that you repress your wills and desires. They tempt you to do something, but you overcome this temptation and don't do it, if the action might lead to any kind of strife. He admits that such self-repression leads to bitterness, but thinks that it is worth it to maintain a clear conscience and peace with your neighbor. The bitterness can be overcome as well, by teaching yourself to reconcile with the limits you put on yourself. Zarathustra will present a very different view. We also meet a distinction between day and night, which will be used as symbols throughout the book. In 18th century thought, day symbolized enlightenment, knowledge of the truth, whereas night symbolized lack of knowledge and lies. The ideal of reason, according to many Enlightenment thinkers, was to bring the light everywhere, and drive away the night, because knowledge of the truth will lead to happiness. But some Enlightenment philosophers thought that there are limits to what man can know, and that the goal of reason should not be the attainment of absolute truth, but of happiness. The wise man belongs to the latter tradition. He wants us to use the day to achieve the knowledge of how to have a good night's sleep. In other words, how to be happy in our state of limited knowledge. In the beginning of the 19th century, the Romantic movement offered another approach. It claimed that happiness is to be achieved not through reason, but through other faculties that humans possess. The Romantics idealized the night, in which all becomes one, in which we can achieve mystical unity with nature, and be happy in this oneness. The harsh light of day, on the other hand, separates all things and shows them to be different from each other, and therefore brings unhappiness. Nietzsche came from the Romantic tradition, but he was unwilling to give up on reason. His goal was to find the ideal way to combine the day and the night, and different hours of the day symbolize different things for him. This will be particularly prevalent in this book.
10 truths must thou find during the day, otherwise wilt thou seek truth during the night, and thy soul will have been hungry. 10 times must thou laugh during the day, and be cheerful, otherwise thy stomach, the father of affliction, will disturb thee in the night.
While Zarathustra is driven by an insatiable hunger for truth and joy, for this wise man truth and laughter are just means to achieve contentment. He looks only for small truths and joys, and isn't interested in what lies beyond that.
Few people know it, but one must have all the virtues in order to sleep well. Shall I bear false witness? Shall I commit adultery? Shall I covet my neighbour's maidservant? All that would ill accord with good sleep.
Now he references the 10 Commandments. They, too, are for him only a recipe for how to achieve contentment.
And even if one have all the virtues, there is still one thing needful, to send the virtues themselves to sleep at the right time, that they may not quarrel with one another, the good females, and about thee, thou unhappy one.
As we recall, Zarathustra preached in the prologue that it is better to develop your one strongest virtue, because this is how you can achieve greatness. The wise man preaches the opposite. He wants you to hold all the virtues, as this will help you be satisfied with yourself. But he admits that these virtues, created at different times during history, can contradict each other. You should therefore not contemplate too much on them, and momentarily let go of one if it contradicts the others. We see that there is no real virtuousness here. What the wise man is teaching you is how to convince yourself that you are a good man, so you will not suffer any pangs of conscience. The discourse is titled The Academic Chairs of Virtue, hinting that in the academy, virtue sits in many different chairs, and we choose by convenience which one we should adhere to.
Peace with God and thy neighbour, so desireth good sleep, and peace also with thy neighbour's devil, otherwise it will haunt thee in the night. Honour to the government and obedience, and also to the crooked government, so desireth good sleep. How can I help it, if power like to walk on crooked legs? He who leadeth his sheep to the greenest pasture shall always be for me the best shepherd, so doth it accord with good sleep.
The wise man also teaches that you must learn to accept the world as it is, and not try to fight to make it better. The latter way only leads to unnecessary suffering. Better to live like a sheep.
Many honours I want not, nor great treasures. They excite the spleen. But it is bad sleeping without a good name and a little treasure. A small company is more welcome to me than a bad one, but they must come and go at the right time. So doth it accord with good sleep.
Here he preaches that the middle way is the virtuous way. You should aspire to have enough of everything, but not too much. This reminds us of Aristotle's ethics, which are another form of achieving inner harmony and avoiding suffering.
Well also do the poor in spirit please me. They promote sleep. Blessed are they, especially if one always give in to them.
And here he invokes Jesus, and preaches that blessed are the meek. Christianity is another form of this way of thought. It generally regards earthly life as suffering, so the most it can hope for is non-suffering.
Thus passeth the day unto the virtuous. When night cometh, then take I good care not to summon sleep. It disliketh to be summoned. Sleep, the lord of the virtues. But I think of what I have done and thought during the day. Thus ruminating, patient as a cow, I ask myself, what were thy 10 overcomings? And what were the 10 reconciliations, and the 10 truths, and the 10 laughters with which my heart enjoyed itself? Thus pondering and cradled by 40 thoughts, it overtaketh me all at once, sleep, the unsummoned, the lord of the virtues. Sleep tappeth on mine eye, and it turneth heavy. Sleep toucheth my mouth, and it remaineth open. Verily on soft souls doth it come to me, the dearest of thieves, and stealeth from me my thoughts. Stupid do I then stand, like this academic chair. But not much longer do I then stand. I already lie.
This is the highest ideal this wise man can think of, to achieve peace of mind. He doesn't use his mind to explore into the secrets of life. He relies on the old values, and lives according to them. His mind is used mainly for rumination, to ask himself if he is a good man according to all the virtues he was taught. Thus ruminating, he sinks into a good night's sleep. We are beginning to understand why this town is called the Pied Cow. It is pied because it is a hodgepodge of many different beliefs, each with its own set of values and understanding of what virtue is. The people of the town are trying to live up to all the virtues, not realizing it doesn't make much sense, since they come from beliefs that contradict each other. And it is a cow because it doesn't create anything new, just regurgitates the old beliefs. Throughout the first part of the book, Zarathustra will deal with the different beliefs that reside in Pied Cow. Needless to say, again, this Pied Cow is an allegory of our modern society.
When Zarathustra heard the wise man thus speak, he laughed in his heart, for thereby had a light dawned upon him, and thus spake he to his heart. A fool seemeth this wise man with his 40 thoughts, but I believe he knoweth well how to sleep. Happy even is he who liveth near this wise man. Such sleep is contagious, even through a thick wall it is contagious. A magic resideth even in his academic chair, and not in vain did the youth sit before the preacher of virtue. His wisdom is to keep awake in order to sleep well, and verily, if life had no sense, and had I to choose nonsense, this would be the desirablest nonsense for me also.
Zarathustra, of course, rejects the teachings of the wise man, but he does have some sympathy for them, and believes they do have merit. This is mainly because the wise man is not telling you to believe in an afterlife, but seeks happiness in earthly life. So he represents a step in the right direction, but doesn't go far enough, and this is how Nietzsche regarded the atheist movements of the 19th century. As Zarathustra says, if earthly life had no meaning, and given that we do not believe in an afterlife, he would choose to act like the wise man. But earthly life can have meaning, and can offer more than just a state of non-suffering, and this is why he is wrong.
Now know I well what people sought formerly above all else when they sought teachers of virtue. Good sleep they sought for themselves, and poppy-head virtues to promote it. To all those belauded sages of the academic chairs, wisdom was sleep without dreams. They knew no higher significance of life.
Zarathustra gained a new insight from listening to the wise man's lecture. He realized that the man's core belief, the belief that our ideal should be a state of non-suffering, is the belief that has always dominated Western thought. Most of the philosophers who came from the Socratic tradition, as well as most of the theologians who came from the Christian tradition, agreed on this point. They could imagine no higher significance to life. This insight makes Zarathustra see more sharply how he is different from them, and what is the mindset he has to free his listeners from.
Even at present, to be sure, there are some like this preacher of virtue, and not always so honourable, but their time is past, and not much longer do they stand. There they already lie. Blessed are those drowsy ones, for they shall soon nod to sleep. Thus spake Zarathustra.
Zarathustra ends this discourse by prophesying that the tide has come for this belief that non-suffering is the most we can aspire to. Once his teachings are understood and accepted, all those thinkers who believe that the ideal should be a good night's sleep are going to sleep themselves into oblivion.